What's going on, everyone? We got another Dr. Stone reading stream today. Obviously, I'm excited to finish up Dr. Stone. We got a long while until Dr. Stone actually starts in January. We do and we don't. So today is the 19th. We have 3 weeks. 3 weeks, almost a month until Dr. Stone starts. So we'll finish up what will probably be part 1 today. And then, I don't know, for the next 3 weeks, we might just have to do Dr. Stone tier lists, Dr. Stone discussions, predictions, all that good stuff. But I'm excited. I know we still have another 3 weeks, but I am extremely excited to have the final season of Dr. Stone. I know it's bittersweet because it's, the final season. The anime is going to be over. But the first part, they're doing it in 3 parts, so that's 2+ years, depending on how they space it. And then there's just the fact that all of the best arcs are finally going to get animated. So I'm excited. I don't know about everyone else, but this is going to be bittersweet for sure. But as usual, we'll give everyone a few minutes before we get started. If you would like to follow along, I don't know how long this stream is going to be, considering I'm only reading maybe 7 chapters today. But if you would like to follow along, we are starting at chapter 158. But while we wait for everyone to hop in, how's everyone doing today? I have not seen the new Dawn to Dawn episode, but I see that everyone is excited that they confirmed part 2 for July. I can't remember off the top of my head what else is supposed to come out in July. I think Bleach Part 4 will probably come out this July as well, so that it ends in October. But I think July is going to be arguably the best summer season of anime since 2019. But it's also very early. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. So, like I said, if you'd like to follow along, we are on Dr. Stone chapter 158. So we are in the middle of the flashback, which explains how Stanley and Zeno were revived and how they founded their American country of science, if you will. So, for anyone who forgets, they explain that the reason, and this actually brings up a good point about one of the, I guess, weaker elements of the story that people complained about at the time. So in the flashback, we find out that one of Luna's admirers had a wedding ring, or a ring, engagement ring, that he wanted to give to Luna. And the ring is made out of platinum. So they were able to use this to then mass produce nitric acid. And then, obviously, build an army. So fast forward to the end of this arc. And Senku is negotiating with Zeno, Stanley, and his army. And I forget exactly how the negotiation went down, but basically he was like, I'll tell you the recipe for nitric acid or something like that. I can't remember, but I can't remember what it was, but it seemed so obvious. And everyone thought, like, how come Zeno never thought of this if he's so smart? So we'll have to get back to it. I know it's at the end of this arc, but we'll just have to see. I remember it being a huge problem when it came out in the manga. We got Justin in the chat. Justin, how you doing today? Hope you're doing well. Justin, who's playing for... is there Thursday Night Football, or is that over now? How did the Bears do on Sunday? I think it's all over. Oh, no. The Broncos, who are 9-5, are playing the Chargers, who are 8-6. That could be a good game. Oh, and just, it's so funny I brought up the Bears. The Bears are playing the Seahawks for the last Thursday game next week. But yeah, Broncos Chargers should be a good game. So they kind of get into it here. Senku says we can use the Medusa against Zeno. He says, more than anyone, Zeno knows how strong scientific weapons can be. The Medusa is a piece of super science, so there's no way he can ignore it. It doesn't matter that we can't use it ourselves, because this enemy is a talented science user. We can make out the Medusa to be some ultimate invincible weapon. So I remember they do pull this off at the end of the arc, but I remember like the way it was done, it made Zeno seem almost stupid, like he never thought of it. Yeah, that's right. The Vikings played the Bears, and didn't the Bears like almost win? What was the score? I was watching that game. That's right. They played the Vikings. And at one point, it felt like they should have beat them. What was the score? I might be thinking of another game. $12-30. We got Party Jams in the chat. Party Jams, tell me, help me out here. We're going to get to it by the end of the stream, but explain to me. So we're reading chapter 158. They're talking about how they're going to use, so in the flashback, it's explained that they had platinum because of one of Luna's little boyfriends, and Zeno used the platinum to mass produce nitric acid. So then after that story, Senku was like, oh, well, we'll use the Medusas to trick Zeno and his army. And I remember at the end of this arc that there was something about the way they ended up doing this where they tricked Zeno and his army, where like they drop the information or like the recipe for revival fluid, something like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? You're telling me they couldn't have thought of that on their own? Do I have that right? That's what happened? And so that's part one. Part two, tell me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that kind of like a divisive moment for the community a bit? Because people were like, okay, that seems a little bit much that Zeno would never have thought to make revival fluid. It was something like that. I can't remember. So now we're on chapter 159. Stanley is ready to snipe Senku, but Zeno is kind of mulling over how to handle the situation because they know Senku is on the ship, but they don't know which one he is. Your stream was a bit delayed. So the question was, if you remember, what ends up happening at the end of this arc as far as like Senku like gives them the formula for revival fluid or something like that? I don't remember exactly what it was. And then the second part to the question was, correct me if I'm mistaken, but wasn't that a bit of a divisive moment for the community? Because people were like, if he's so smart, how come he never figured it out? From what I remember, I do think people were surprised Zeno didn't figure out revival fluid. Okay, so I'm not crazy. I remember that being kind of a big deal. Yeah, I think that's what prevents that moment from being sort of a fatal flaw of the story, was that um Kiefer, what's up? How you doing? Um I remember also spoilers. We're talking about season 4 stuff for Dr. Stone. Um I remember that's not like what prevented that from being a flaw of the story, a fatal flaw, was that people were like, oh, well, it kind of makes sense because, even if you're smart, you don't think of absolutely everything. Um, but still, it does seem a little silly. But obviously, so Stanley is about to snipe Senku, and I didn't remember this part. So he makes a do-it-yourself bulletproof vest, but the way he does it is not conventional. So usually for a bulletproof vest, you have like a Kevlar vest or like ceramic armor or something like that. Senku takes uh, dilatant fluid, however you say it, um, basically by mixing potato starch with water. He puts it in a bag, mixes it up, and then the theory is that the stress would create something that is technically liquid, but nearly solid. So almost like melted rubber. And they point out the concept has been researched for bulletproof vests, though such designs were never put into practice. So this is one of those areas where Dr. Stone really gets into the theoretical science, if you will. Also, now that I never really bothered to pay attention to that detail. Let me see. So, chapter 159, how many bullets does he shoot? Stanley shoots. Because he's got like an actual magazine for his rifle. It's magazine fed. It doesn't look bolt action, if I'm not mistaken. No, this isn't a bolt action gun. So he would have multiple bullets. So at one point, he's just shooting one bullet. Wait a minute. So the bullet is going to Senku. The bullet is going to Senku. It shoots through the counter he's hiding behind, and it shatters. And then that shattered bullet turns into a bunch of fragments. So that's why Senku has multiple entry point wounds, because he only fires the one shot, but it fragments. I don't know. I'll have to see that animated because that seemed a bit confusing. Excuse me. The bullet was hard to track. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on there. Because, so, if you have a full metal jacket, then it doesn't really do that. It just kind of, goes through the target. If you have a hollow point, it will sort of like open up and then it gets stuck in the target. But it doesn't fragment into pieces like that. At least not ordinarily. So I don't really know what happened there. I'll have to see that animated because I never really noticed it till now, but that seemed kind of confusing what happened. The reason I bring that up is because, especially in retrospect, if you've read the whole manga, you know what like a badass Stanley is. And especially if Zeno tells him, yeah, kill this guy, and you see that he's got a sniper rifle with a magazine, which implicitly would have multiple bullets, right? Like multiple rounds. Why would Stanley not shoot multiple rounds instead of just the one bullet and then be like, okay, well, my job is done? Obviously he's dead. That's another interesting point that I never really thought of. I wonder if it's because it's a bullet made in the stone world. I feel like if they have the technology to make guns, they definitely have the technology to make adequate bullets. But that is a good point. That like maybe it's not pure enough. Like they didn't have pure enough metals for it to not fragment as soon as it hit a target. So, on chapter 160, so Stanley shows up. Or, excuse me, no, he doesn't. He never goes over to the ship. He just takes the shot, sort of visually confirms that he hit Senku, talks to Luna's boyfriends, and he's like, all right, let's get out of here. He's dead. And I think this kind of confirms where Stanley's head is at in this moment. So, and I can't remember their names, but Luna's boyfriends are like, so are we going to go get Luna or what? And he basically says, do whatever you want, right? So at this point, Stanley is in sort of like a gray area as far as like, you know, the good and evil thing. Like clearly he's in that soldier mentality of like he has a job to do. So if he's told to kill someone, he's going to kill someone, right? But at the same time, we also know that Stanley and Zeno deep down are good guys. So I think the reason he doesn't like invade the ship and like shoot Senku in the head execution style is because he doesn't want to be that guy. Like, he's a soldier, but he doesn't want to, like, be, I don't know, a villain, if that makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot of gray area in this arc. We got a subscription from Mai. Thank you for the subscription. Glad to have you aboard. Also, speaking of having you aboard, look out for notifications in the next coming weeks. I'm going to put out some teasers for the emotes and loyalty badges. For everyone that's in the chat now, since we are doing a Dr. Stone stream, you'll be happy to know that all of the loyalty badges are Dr. Stone themed. So as a thank you to everyone that's been following me back to my days, God, 3 years ago now, when I was doing weekly Dr. Stone videos. If you become a member, starting in January, you will receive loyalty badges based on how long you stay a member. If you would like to see what those look like, then stay tuned to the community page. So Senku confirms. He says, "I'm not dead. The fragments." So the bullet does split into fragments. That much we do know. He also says they passed right through him, which I kind of have a hard time of believing, because if the bullet had already fragmented before it hit the bag, then I feel like it would have already been slowed down to the point where they would have stopped when they entered Senku's body. But again, this is already kind of a wish-washy situation. So this episode I will especially look forward to watching, because I feel like watching it animated and watching it actually break down over time will give you a better idea of what actually happened. Yeah, right, exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. Left Luna alone with the enemy. He was like, whatever, that's not my job. Senku even points it out. He says, a headshot would have been 10 billion% instant death. For all they know, I was the only one with the revival fluid recipe memorized, so they probably wanted to give me a chance to spill the secret on my deathbed. That's an option. And interesting enough, I forgot about this. So Senku is speaking in English so that Luna can understand what he's saying. And then, of course, we get the cool team up with the Chrome team and Tsukasa and Hyoga. And then, of course, we get the end of the chapter where Senku is like, I'm leaving it up to you, Chrome. And we get one of the, well, we get the start to one of the best arcs for Chrome in the whole manga. And that brings us to chapter 161. Dr. Stone has some good psychological elements that go underappreciated now that I think about it. Yeah, it really does. As much as the later arcs kind of muddled things and feel rushed, there's a lot of nuance to this story that I feel like if you don't take the time to carefully read the manga or carefully watch the anime, especially the anime because they add so many additional scenes, it's very easy to miss it all. Like even, especially, a character like Magma is easy to write off as just an archetypal character, but even a character like Magma, especially by the end of the manga, is a very nuanced character. So, to distract Dr. Zeno, they take the Medusa device, shoot it at his castle, and they're like, alright, well, this'll keep him occupied. And then, of course, they know Gen is over there, so they use Gen to kind of mess with Zeno. This was a huge chapter, actually, now that I remember it. Chapter 161, at the end of it, they go to the basement of Zeno's castle, and they see that Dr. Brody, I just love saying that, Dr. Brody, is working on something, but they don't know what it is. So you have Senku and Chrome's invasion plan, and then you have Dr. Zeno's secret weapon, which, now that I think of it, I can't actually remember what the hell it was. Oh, you know what? I do remember what it was. I remember this. So, Tsukasa's like, well, wouldn't it take 2 weeks to dig a tunnel? And then Chrome's like, oh, well, I'll make this big fancy machine that you guys have definitely never thought of. And he calls it a diggerific, rotating, impelling, land-eating loop knife. And they're like, oh, so it's a drill. I love that gag with Chrome. And then we get a very nice color page on chapter 162. A color cover page with Chrome on the front, Kohaku, Senku, and the big drill. They make it look like... Is that supposed to be like a Titanic poster? Because they put featuring Senku and Chrome, Kohaku, Tsukasa, Ukyo, Hyoga, Suika, as well as Zeno Stanley. Can someone look that up? Is the cover page for 162, is that supposed to be like a Titanic reference or something? Oh, wait. Maybe it's like 1,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Or, yeah, do I have that title right? 1,000 Leagues Under the Sea? Brody deserves so much more along with the other Americans. Yeah, I feel like Dr. Brody had so much potential. But, you know, he's a cool side character. He gets the job done. I feel like the big difference between a story like Dr. Stone and a story like One Piece is like Oda will make a side character and he's like, okay, cool. Well, now we need to know like their whole backstory. Whereas Dr. Stone makes a really cool side character, but it's very comfortable keeping them like a side character. It's like, it's okay for side characters to be side characters. We don't need their whole backstory. So it kind of depends on your preference. Wait a minute. So they send Taiju to bring the drill to Chrome, and he confronts Luna's boyfriends, but he's talking to them. Oh no, he is speaking Japanese at first. Okay. So it's Carlos, and then who was the other character? I can't remember his name. So that's funny. So all the girls are having lunch, and Manami is like, wait a minute, did Taiju ever get his driver's license? And oh my god, I can't remember her name. Yuzuriha is like, oh, right. He didn't actually get his driver's license. Was this the chapter? I'm trying to think. It's either this chapter, chapter 162, or one of the later chapters, where they show that like you have to have airways in tunnels, otherwise they collapse. You have to have like some kind of airflow, and I never knew that, but then I remembered that they included that as a detail in the Sinnoh generation of games, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. If you go back to, I think it's Oreburg City, the one with the rock type gym, if you walk around that town, they have all those little air vents sticking out of the ground. So if you're a kid, you're like, why do they have all these little air vents? And then if you know the science, you realize, oh, it's because they have all the tunnels for the mining, which is a really cool detail. And Dr. Stone helped me figure that out. I did not know that. I did not know that. Max. Okay, so it's Carlos and Max. Thank you. What did I think about the last episode? I'm assuming you're thinking of Dawn to Dawn. I have not seen the new episode yet. I meant to watch it, could not watch it before stream. I'm gonna watch it tonight. Gen 4 Pokemon takes me back. Man, people love to crap on Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. I know Diamond and Pearl have their issue with the whole health bar thing, but man, Platinum is such a good game. And then, of course, you have Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but Platinum will always have a special place in my heart. What's good, Edens? Excuse me 1 second. Edens, I'm not going to lie. And we got Party Jams, too, so we got 2 Sonic fans. I'm pretty hype for the Shadow movie. Of course, I call it the Shadow movie. Sonic 3 tomorrow. I'm going to go watch it tomorrow night. I've managed to avoid spoilers, but I saw on Twitter today that it's one of, if not the most highest rated video game movie of all time, which is a huge achievement. And to go on a quick side tangent here, so there is a huge IMAX theater in my area, not too far from where I live. But because it's a smaller theater, so it's a big theater because they do like Tempur-Pedic seats and all this really cool stuff, but it's also a small theater. Excuse me. Like, they don't do a lot of showings. They only do like the so-called blockbuster movies. Like, they'll do Deadpool, or they'll do, you know, whatever. So this weekend, all they're playing is that stupid Mufasa movie. So I wanted to go see it at this really nice theater, but I can't because it's not Mufasa. So regardless, I will go see it tomorrow night because I have to go to the airport. So I figured, excuse me, hold on. Like I was saying, I have to pick somebody up late at the airport, so I figured I would watch the movie, and then by the time the movie is over, I can go to the airport. But it's frustrating because, like, I wanted to go see the movie at, like, my favorite theater, but they're not playing it. So it's almost ironic that it seems like the Sonic movie is going to blow the Mufasa movie completely out of the water. The spoilers are crazy. Been on the internet. You warned Townsy to be careful. Yo, I gotta hit him up because I don't even know if he's going to see the movie this weekend. He might be busy working. That's so funny. Is it playing today? Are you seeing like an early screening? Because I thought it didn't come out until tomorrow. You're going to see it in a few hours? I have my... It's so funny you say that. I have my little Sonic t-shirt that I'm going to wear when I go see it tomorrow. I'm hyped, dude. It looks sick. And especially, like, I thought Keanu Reeves was going to be like, yeah, whatever. But he seems like genuinely excited about this movie. So it's just really cool. Oh, they're doing fan screenings today. Gotcha. So we're at 43 minutes, right? Do I have that right? Yeah, 43 minutes. So let's see if we can't speed up Dr. Stone a bit. Chapter 163. Luna is checking on Senku, and she's like, kind of sounds like he's got some blood in one of his lungs. And Senku's like, oh, great, so you can just stab a giant syringe in my lung and plunge it out. And she's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So again, kudos to Senku. He's like literally dying. His lung is filling up with blood, and he's giving medical instructions in a second language. Kind of badass. And then, of course, this is the moment where Luna is like, will you be my boyfriend? Or what did she say? Yeah, once they're all better, will you be my boyfriend? And Senku's like, come again? I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm definitely going to do a video on whatever episode this ends up being. I have to kind of do my math, but I'm going to do a video tie-in for this episode. For sure. This scene in particular. So stay tuned for that one. And then Luna calls Carlos, and she's like, oh yeah, guess what? I have a boyfriend. Yeah, I still, like, even now I'm reading the chapter and I feel like I remember what Dr. Brody had made, but the way they're building it up, I feel like I'm wrong. So Luna is like, oh yeah, I'm dating Senku now. It's kind of a big deal. And then everyone's like, well, maybe. And then she's like, what? Are you going to tell me that he would just lie about dating somebody? And they're like, well, he did get married and divorced. That's funny. Oh, that's right. They get into a dogfight with Stanley. Oh, that's such a cool chapter. Yeah, this is one of my favorite chapters, actually. If I'm not mistaken, this was when Star Wars Battlefront, the modern games, were still pretty popular. So this made me like go play the dogfight game mode. Oh, it was a submarine. That's what it was. I thought it was like the super armor that they wear when they invade the ship, but it was the submarine that they used to invade the ship. Dr. Stone rereads reminds us how much of an incredible story. I know people have their complaints, and I know Dr. Stone has its clear issues, but it's such a good story, man. Like every time I'm like, I don't know if it's my favorite manga, I go and reread it and I'm like, yeah, it's my favorite manga. Like it's almost undoubtable. I often, well, it's between One Piece, Gintama, and Dr. Stone. And I say Gintama because I've watched the anime. I do have to read the manga, but I have a feeling that when I read the manga, I'll still feel the same way. But it's between One Piece, Gintama, and Dr. Stone. Oh, that's right. They did a poll, chapter 166. They did a popularity poll for the inventions from season 1. Or at least inventions. First place was Senku Cola, second place was the katana, and third place was the sulfa drugs. So basically, all season 1 stuff. I forgot that Hyoga taught Mozu. I forget what the Japanese art is called, but basically the spear spinning art form that he uses, that Hyoga uses. We got Luke in the chat too. Luke, what's up? We still got a few minutes at least, but you've missed quite the Dr. Stone discussion for sure. We talked about the scene with Stanley sniping Senku. We talked about Stanley's morality in this arc. We talked about the issue of how they negotiate with Zeno at the end of the arc. Talked about a bunch of stuff. Oh, that's right. This is where we find out that there's like a fake Stanley, and the fake Stanley is a girl. So they think they catch Stanley, but then they open it up and it's like, haha, just kidding. I'm not Stanley. Yeah, that was definitely a weird scene that nobody saw coming. Yeah, so something to confirm about Stanley is, and again, it's a shonen manga. Obviously, they're going to censor themselves a bit. Like if this were, a different magazine, it might be different, like Jump Plus. But Stanley never really shoots to kill so much. Like he shoots Mozu, but he shoots him in the shoulder. So he doesn't kill him, but he completely immobilizes him. And then one of my favorite spreads in the entire manga, the end of chapter 166, where Zeno thinks he's won. And then they're like, oh, hey, have you met Tsukasa? No, we predicted a fake Stanley. There were hints in the dialogue and the face markings. Well, I certainly didn't. But I'm glad the fan base did. Clearly, the Dr. Stone fan base is much smarter than I am. Or maybe not. So this brings us to chapter 167, which is just right around the end of this arc. Technically, Stanley kills Hyoga, Tsukasa, and Kohaku. Yes, that's true. Although not... no, I don't think that's true. I'm pretty sure Tsukasa gets killed by one of the random soldiers. I don't think it's Stanley. Another great panel. Chapter 167, where they're invading the castle, and Kohaku opens the door, and there's a massive army of soldiers, and she's all surprised. And then the very last panel of pages 4 and 5, you just get this panel of little tiny Kohaku, and then like big Tsukasa opening the door like, I got this. Like, hold my beer. I'm curious to see how the anime is going to handle the Japanese and English stuff. So like in this scene where they trap Zeno, Chrome is talking. He's looking at the lab like, oh, look at all this cool science. And Zeno goes, you must be blah, 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 blah. So I'm curious to see how they're going to handle the whole English versus Japanese thing. I'm sure obviously at one point they're all just going to speak Japanese, but I am curious to see how they're going to do it. And then, of course, we get one of the defining moments for Chrome towards the end of the chapter where Zeno was talking about how he wants to lead the ignorant masses. And Chrome basically references all the stuff that happened with Magma. And he's like, yeah, different strokes for different folks. But, I'm not going to judge people. Which brings us to chapter 168 and the reunion of Senku and Zeno. So again, something to point out. Zeno says Stanley would never fail to make a killing shot. You must have used scientific measures to foil the bullet and defy death. Again, I'm not quite clear what happened to the bullet when he shot at Senku, because if you look at the chapter, they make it look like it fragmented before it makes contact with Senku. The way it looks like so Senku was like hiding behind a counter. It makes it look like it goes through the counter, fragments, and then hits Senku. I don't know. It's a very minute detail, but one that kind of has me questioning what they were going for. So, in the chaos, they take Zeno's smaller boat. I believe this is where they make a run for South America. The goal is diplomacy. It's the New World's first and last leadership summit between Japan and the US. Out of all the Americans, who seems like the most reasonable? And then, of course, again, they hype up Dr. Brody. God. Yeah, Dr. Brody had all the potential, man. It did fragment, but it would still hurt. Yeah, no, obviously. I mean, it's a bullet. It's like if you get hit by shattered glass, the shattered glass would still hurt. Yeah, no, I'm not questioning any of that. I didn't realize there was so much nuance to the ballistics of that shot. Are you continuing into South America reread? Not for now, because I just want to focus on the part 1 stuff, which at 2 chapters an episode for 12 episodes, it seems like part 1 is just going to adapt this stuff. So we have 3 weeks until part 1 of season 4 starts. So for the next 3 Thursdays, I'll either take some kind of brief break from Dr. Stone, or we'll just do like tier lists or something. But I do want to make Thursdays about Dr. Stone for sure, especially while the anime is running, because Thursdays are going to be the days where the new episodes drop. Thank you to Silly for the subscription. Glad to have you aboard. So Senku gets Brody on the phone. He wants to do a hostage exchange, it seems like. He says that's true, so to make up for the difference, how about some useful info? So he tells them the recipe for Nitol to revive people. So he negotiates an alliance saying, I'll give you the revival fluid formula. Use it to build up a city where you can make a bunch of corn. But you can't hurt my people. So basically what Senku is counting on is that Stanley is going to track down Senku so he won't get in the way of Brody building Corn City. So yeah, this was the scene that I remember people being kind of confused by, because it seemed a little too easy to negotiate this alliance. But I think, so part 1, is it the Lavender Town music in the background? Yeah. If you want to use this playlist, this is not my playlist. This is, if you go on Spotify, it's a channel called Bits and Hits. Their logo is a little 8-bit heart. Bits and Hits makes lo-fi 8-bit remixes of video game music like Pokemon, Elder Scrolls, Lord of the Rings, The Witcher, all kinds of RPGs and whatnot. I use it for the streams because they don't explicitly give permission, but they do allow you to use their music for videos and streams. So again, that is Bits and Hits over on Spotify, but they are also on YouTube. Excuse me 1 second. So originally, why I didn't think this scene was a problem was because obviously Zeno is not, he's not focused on reviving people, so he wouldn't have put his time and effort into coming up with a revival fluid formula. So that's part 1. But now that I reread this, especially with the context of knowing what kind of character Brody is, this scene makes a lot more sense because we know Brody is a very rational character and he sees the big picture. So if you kind of fill in the blanks and understand that, you know, he sees that Senku is not going away anytime soon, and realistically he kind of likes Senku's way of things as opposed to just killing everybody, it kind of makes sense that Brody would go along with this because he wants to, not because he feels like he's being forced to, but because he feels like he's like genuinely excited to build a corn city and not kill everybody. So that kind of saves this chapter for me, in addition to the first part. And then chapter 169 is also an iconic moment. So they have to cross the Perseus so that they can say goodbye to everybody. They put a Medusa on the front of Zeno's little ship to intimidate everybody. So then everyone pretends that it's like a bomb. Oh, they call it the Petra beam. They shoot it off, but this creates a distraction so that they could pass the Perseus. And then they do the little One Piece Alabasta Vivi thing where they put their fists up and they have like a powwow. I feel like that'll be really cool to see in the anime. And yeah, that's it. I feel like this is probably right about where they'll end part 1, because from here, this is where they split off for all the South America stuff. Boichi was very inconsistent during the run when it came to drawing Stanley's scar on his face. I do vaguely remember that. I'm more curious how the Japanese English translations will be handled in the dub. That's a good point, and also a nice reminder that I need to watch the Dr. Stone dub because I've never watched it before. I've heard that it's good, but like in a fun way. Do tier lists? Okay, we might have to do tier lists. They only had the Perseus for less than 2 months. Yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's stream. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. I had a ton of great points to bring up. This was a lot to think about. I'm glad I did the reread because it's given me a lot of context for this arc and actually improved it a bit in my mind. So look out for videos this weekend. We'll do a video tomorrow and then a video Saturday. Look out for a weekly Shonen Jump stream on Sunday. I don't know what time that will be. I'd like to say it'll be at 2 o'clock. But I also have to do some last minute Christmas shopping that morning, so I can't promise what time I'll be back home. But do look out for a Shonen Jump stream on Sunday. And then, like I said, look out for the community tab because I'll be sharing some sneak peeks for the emotes and loyalty badges, which for all of you Dr. Stone fans in the stream that have been supporting me for, what would it be? It would be 4 years now is when I started doing weekly Dr. Stone content, right? That would be 2020. God, 4 years. That's crazy. Anyway, as a thank you to everyone and as a homage, so to speak, to how I got my bread and butter, the loyalty badges will be Kingdom of Science themed. But look out for those. Until then, thank you for watching.